Hey, what's up guys, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be comparing the PS4 controller to the Xbox controller. Now this is only a controller comparison, so I won't be comparing the consoles themselves, but this is to more look at the buttons on both controllers, as well as the layout, the longevity, the comfort, and many other things. And I've had my fair use of both controllers, but as a lot of you may know, I mainly use the PS4 DualShock 4 controller. So I did get help from you guys over on Twitter about the Xbox controller and your long-term experiences with them. By the way, if you could just quickly drop a like on the video and subscribe, that'd be much appreciated. I upload videos like this all the time, as well as in December, I'll be reviewing a whole bunch of controllers, and you're not gonna wanna miss that. Anyway, my name is Flea, and this is the PS4 vs Xbox controller comparison. Alrighty, so I have the controllers set up down here, as you can see. It's just going to be a lot easier for me to talk about the controllers when they're just down in front of me like this. But just before I get started, let me know what controller you guys use in the comments right now. Whether that would be an Xbox, PS4, or a different Pro controller. I'd love to know what you guys use. Keep in mind guys that this video is just my opinion with a little help from you guys. So it's nothing official, everything is just personal preference. So starting off with the reason I'm comparing these two controllers is because not only are they the stock controllers for their console, but they also sit around a very similar price point. So the PS4 controller, you're looking at an average of $60, and the Xbox controller, you're looking at an average of $70. It wouldn't be fair if I compared like a $60 controller to a $200 controller, so that's why it's these two. So first things first, let's start off with appearance and comfort. So at first glance, you can clearly see the Xbox controller is a lot smaller than the PS4 controller. It may have a thicker frame than the PS4 controller, but the width is also a lot shorter. So if I just overlap the two, you can clearly see the PS4 controller is a lot longer than the Xbox controller. And I'm not really one to care about what a controller looks like, I more care about the comfort and functionality of it. But if we're going off just pure comfort, honestly, I have to say the Xbox controller definitely feels more comfortable. The shape at the back of the Xbox controller is a lot deeper, so it's a lot nicer to put your fingers in compared to the PS4 controller. Your fingers just feel a lot more comfortable sitting in the grooves at the back of the Xbox controller. So even though I've always used the PS4 controller, the Xbox controller just feels a lot more comfortable in your hands. So the Xbox controller wins me over for the appearance and comfort, although not a big deal. Let's get into the button functionality. So I'll start off by saying obviously both controllers don't have any paddles, and they both have the same amount of button binds on each controller. So let's start off with bumpers and triggers, and I gotta say honestly, Xbox definitely take this one home. Their bumper buttons have a real nice clean mouse click. But with the PS4 bumpers, they definitely don't feel as good. They're a lot harder to click in, as well as they wobble around a lot and they aren't that stable. So I'm not sure if you can tell, but that bumper button definitely moves a lot. Like it moves back and forth, it kind of like rolls around. Whereas the Xbox controller bumpers, it kind of just sits there, it doesn't move at all, and it's just a lot quicker to press. But with the PS4 triggers, I actually prefer them over the Xbox triggers, just because that little concave shape there is just really nice to put your finger in and press down. But with the Xbox controller, it has huge trigger buttons, and when I was playing Xbox, I kind of didn't know where to put my finger, whether at the top or at the bottom. It just felt a lot more awkward to press because it's just really pointy at the end, and the overall buttons are just massive. Moving down to the action buttons, this is kind of 50-50 with me because I much prefer the flat style that the PS4 has. As you can see, the buttons are just ultra flat. So when I'm playing Claw, it's super easy to press each button. Compared to the Xbox controller, although the buttons do feel a lot nicer to press, the buttons protrude quite a lot and they're actually really rounded. So when I'm playing Claw, I feel like my finger was sliding off a bit just because the surface is a lot more smooth and rounded. So if you're a Claw player, I feel like PS4 takes that one. Moving over to the D-pad, 100% hands down, PS4 have the worst D-pad in the world. The DualShock 4 D-pad is basically one big button with 4 points you can press it in, which means if you press the side part of one button, it may trigger the button next to it. And this can be super annoying and frustrating in game, especially when you're playing Claw, because the way you claw is you push the button down, and if I'm pushing like right on the D-pad, it might activate down by accident. So it's super annoying, and the PS4 D-pad all round, it just feels really mushy and it doesn't actually feel like buttons. Whereas the Xbox D-pad buttons, although it's a lot smaller, the buttons are a lot nicer to press in. They sound like a mouse click. So although the D-pad's a lot smaller, it definitely feels a lot better and more responsive than the PS4 controller. Alright, and next up, and a really important thing to mention, are these middle buttons here. So majority of my audience were from Fortnite, so I'm going to refer to Fortnite here, but the PS4 controller takes home huge points for this D-pad button because its practicality is just insane. You can do so much with this D-pad button. If you're a claw player, not only can you claw the left side, but you can also claw the right side, as well as if maybe you're not a claw player, you can still press the button at the top up here on both sides. So you got 4 ways to press this D-pad button, as well as it feels like a mouse click. So huge points to the DualShock 4 for that. It's a button that many people use for editing, including me. As you can see, I've used it so much that I've actually worn down the area where I edit on the touchpad. It's such a good button, I love it, and comparing the middle buttons to the Xbox controller, I'm pretty sure you can't bind that button there because it's the start button, but you can bind this share button here, which doesn't even compete with how good the touchpad is. This share button here is just really wobbly and squishy, nowhere near as good as the touchpad on the PS4 controller, so huge points for that one. But now let's get into the really important topic of analog sticks. So starting off by looking at the grip, the PS4 has kind of like a rough rubbery grip. As you can see, it's kind of got that rough rubber texture look and feels a lot more grippy for my thumb than the Xbox controller. The Xbox controller has that rough grip, but for some reason they stopped it and the middle is like a smooth rubber. I definitely don't want smooth in my analog stick. I want everything to be as grippy as possible. But none of these grips even come close to the grips on Control Freaks. If you guys have been following me for a while, you know that I've been using Control Freaks now for years and years. Me personally, I use the Galaxies. All they do is just clip onto your analog stick just like that. They don't move around at all. They're on super tight. And as you can see, you'll be getting a whole lot better grip than the standard PS4 analog stick. There's heaps of other benefits to Control Freaks other than the grip, but we're not going to get into that now, because if you got Control Freaks, you don't have to deal with the little amount of grip that the stock controllers come with. By the way guys, you can use code FLEA at Control Freak checkout for 10% off. But for the sake of this video, taking off the Control Freaks and going over just the stock grip, the PS4 controller wins just because the roughness of the grip goes through the whole analog stick, whereas on the Xbox, it stops around the outside. So we've pretty much finished going over the button functionality. I'd say Xbox wins that one. Now let's go over the button layout. So the button layout here is almost identical. The only difference is the left analog stick on the Xbox controller, instead of being symmetrical, it's actually up here. And this may not seem like a big deal for most of you, but for a double claw player like me, not being able to claw the D-pad down there or that middle button is a big deal for me. Because if I just turn the camera upside down, when I'm playing claw, I use my left index finger to edit like this, as well as my left index finger is able to press any D-pad button I want to. So it has so much functionality of being able to press so many buttons, whereas the Xbox controller, if I put both my thumbs on the analog sticks like most players, it's extremely hard for me to claw that button if I wanted to, and it's literally impossible to claw the D-pad. I know there is a thing called Xbox Claw, and I did try it for a video. It's where the index finger does the movement and your thumb can do the buttons. So claw on Xbox would be like this, and I did try it and it wasn't too hard, but very few people play like this just because everyone was taught to have 2 thumbs on the analog stick, and it's going to be really hard to get used to your finger controlling the analog stick. So although you can double claw on both controllers, it's definitely a lot easier on the PS4 controller. Big points to the PS4 controller for keeping a symmetrical layout just so both hands can be doing the same thing. Alright, now let's talk about the longevity of these controllers, so how long they last. And starting off with the PS4 controller, I think I'm on my 4th controller now. These bad boys usually last me about 6 months, and honestly I'd say that's pretty good for a $60 controller. And I'm definitely not one to be throwing my controllers or rage quit anything like that anymore. I treat these really well, and if you do, they definitely last. So keep in mind, this isn't me for a couple of days a week playing Crash Bandicoot on easy difficulty. I'm aggressively using this controller playing Fortnite on high sensitivity, and it lasts a really long time. Now I couldn't speak for the longevity on the Xbox controller, so I had to go to Twitter for this, and according to you guys, the average lifespan for a standard Xbox controller is 2 to 6 months. So it's significantly less than the PS4 controller, but I understand why, because the buttons definitely feel a lot cheaper. Everything just feels a lot more plastic and hollow on the Xbox controller compared to the PS4 controller. So I feel like the PS4 controller wins in longevity, although everyone has different experiences. And the last thing to mention, this is actually something really big that I almost forgot about, is that the Xbox controller actually takes batteries. So that's a huge downside. If you want to play this thing wirelessly, you need batteries, whereas with the DualShock 4, you can just charge it. Obviously it doesn't matter if you're plugged in, but it's kind of a big deal if you're someone who likes to play wirelessly. So in conclusion, they're about the same price, buttons. The Xbox controller looks nicer and it feels nicer in the hands. The Xbox controller also has better buttons in my opinion. They just click a lot better and feel a lot nicer than the PS4 controller. But the PS4 controller definitely has a better layout just because it's symmetrical. It just makes more sense and it's really important for double claw players like me. The controller that lasts the longest before something breaks is probably going to have to be the PS4 controller. I just feel like they're built better. Although the Xbox controller buttons are nicer to press, they're also a lot more hollow and they feel a lot cheaper than the PS4 ones. So which one is better? Honestly, to tell you the truth, it's a draw. Both controllers have their positives and negatives, as well as it kind of just depends on the person. It all comes down to personal preference. But because you clicked on my video and this is my opinion, I'm gonna have to go with the PS4 controller. Playing double claw is a big deal to me, and being able to do that on the DualShock 4 is game changing. Alright, and that's gonna be it for this video. It wasn't anything serious, but it was something that was highly requested, and I thought I'd cover it on my channel and give you my opinion. If you made it to the end of the video, drop a controller emoji in the comments, and also consider using code FLEA in the item shop if you would like to support more content like this. And that's gonna be it from me, guys. Don't forget to follow my socials on screen if you would like to see more of me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.